Hello, messy families. We are so glad you tuned in today. This is actually going to be a very important topic.
I was going to say a very messy topic.
A very messy, and we're just going to go for it because we need to go where no other podcast would go.
You know, before we do announcements and stuff, I think we should just talk about the topic really quick. And I just want to give a couple examples that I had thought of, all right, so screens and technology. This is the third time we've talked about this, but I feel like
we've talked about it in other instances, I think.
Yes. But I think that it is a topic that constantly needs to be revisited because it is constantly evolving and our understanding of technology is constantly evolving. And I just, like when Mike was saying, welcome to the neighborhood, welcome messy families. I just want you guys to know we are totally a messy family too.
we are with you 100%.
And I just want to share a little bit of inspiration, but before I've just really come to realize that our guardian angels are so good to us. And I want to challenge every parent as we go into this topic, as we're talking about it. I want you to really think about your guardian angel and ask them for help in this area, because the physical world, right, is under the evil one, right? Because of the fall and all of that, that Satan is
under the influence,
and the influence of the evil one, right?
Not control, but yeah.
Of course. Right. But I think that especially technology, there is a particular role that the evil one has in technology. He just does. And I've known that from the time that I was on the road doing concerts throughout the US, and our sound system, inexplicably sometimes we would set everything up and then it would just go off, and then we would pray and unplug everything and replug it in, and then it would work, and it's like, there is something about technology. And that was like dinosaur technology compared to AI, what we have today. But there is and even just listening to different exorcists and stuff talk about technology, there is a real influence of the evil one in technology.
So I just think
he's going to laugh at me.
I just think it's awesome. We're and this is, you're 100% right. You're totally right.
Okay, good job starting with that.
All right. But
this is not in the notes, guys.
I just think it's very funny that we start with technology. That's our topic. And you start with spirituality, right, which is not wrong. But I think for a lot of people, wait. I clicked on something that said technology and my kids or screens and blah, 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 and how to deal with this. And you start, because, this is the way we do it, right? Because I think what we try to do as a whole, right, is deal with very practical things that are happening in the home, where the rubber hits the road on making things real in our lives. But they all come from a place, if you've listened to us, we're hopefully faithful Catholic, faithful Christians, not too preachy, but we're honest about stuff. And I want to just say that there is, there's positives and negatives, there's earthly realities, and we're not trying to, but on the other side, there are things that are inexplicable, right, that we don't want to ignore. And there are challenges and forces at work that we don't see. Right. And
just even with our own family, I mean, I'll start out by just telling you all, even in our own family, there have been probably 4 or 5 instances when I know guardian angels guided us to discover tech stuff that our kids had used and made us aware of it. Yeah. And by the grace of God, we could address it with our children. Right. And I just found something today and I'm not just talking about porn. I'm talking about all host of boundaries that we have set up that children are constantly testing. Now,
there's a phrase, I'd rather be lucky than good, which I always had a problem with, because I'm you ever heard that phrase?
Oh, yeah.
And I've always had a problem because I'm you're supposed to be good too. Wait. Yeah. But the reality is, from a spiritual perspective, I'd rather be blessed than purely skilled.
I'd rather be under the influence of my guardian angel than have the best plan available.
Right. Because there are so many things that we cannot perceive.
Yes.
And
that's what I'm saying.
We are challenged. And this is true in almost anything. And regardless of where you are in your faith, let me just say that when you enter into this great adventure of parenting, right, you need God. I don't care where you are, whatever level you're at in your faith, you need more of it, because you know what?
Because we do.
You do not have what it takes to parent kids in this modern, crazy, mixed up world. We need God in a way that no other generation may have needed it, because there are so many more obstacles and barriers and things that we just aren't aware of. Like that we can't be aware of what's around the next corner. We need God, and we need the Holy Spirit to inspire us. This is not a joke. This is not for the faint of heart. This is an awesome responsibility.
Right.
But you can do it. Have hope.
Right.
And be encouraged.
Right.
So anyway.
All right. Well, we want to get into the body, but before we do that, we have some announcements.
Well, we are, I think this is great. We'll do real quickly. One, we're coming into May, right? We're in May now. So when we recorded this, or when you're hearing this, we would have just done actually a whole series in the Diocese of South Bend. So they had us come on technology. So this is fresh in our minds. And that would already be in our rear view mirror.
And we have a guide to technology on our website. But but we just got finished. And so actually we're done our speaking events pretty much. We're going to do something for our home diocese, but we are pretty much done for the summer. And we will be at the Eucharistic Congress.
Yeah.
So please come and find us. Let us know if you're going to be there, because we're going to have a booth at the Eucharistic Congress. And if we have enough people respond, and we've already had some people respond, I want to set up an event. I want to set up a fun family event.
Together.
So to gather people. So just reply if you're on our email list, which you should be. And if you're not on our email list, what are you doing with your life? Just reply to that email and let us know that you'll be there.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
And we are coming up on, we've announced before our Catholic couples getaways. We're going to Colorado Springs, Rocky Mountains, this September, end of September. Really excited about that, as well as Costa Rica. Woo! With Chris and Natalie Stefanik.
And that Costa Rica trip is, wow, it is taken off.
I am excited.
Yes.
Excited.
And early bird discounts and.
Well, so the early bird one that's a concern is the Colorado, just because it's so quick.
Yeah.
There's an early bird discount. We really want to give you the every penny that we can get out of the resort as a special deal.
Yeah.
If you can sign up by May 15th, we'll extend that a little bit if we can.
Yeah.
But if you can sign up right away, that helps us in getting the right number of rooms, particularly for Colorado.
And this is the same retreat that we'll be doing for our international getaways. So if you're like, I don't want to leave the country, or maybe the price point's a little high for you, go to Colorado Springs. We tried to make it like really accessible, but still a beautiful luxury resort with all the same getaway programming that we do for everybody.
It's a joyful vibe on our getaways. Yes. And it's awesome.
Guys, we have the Play and Pray Challenge coming up in June.
Yeah.
So start talking about that with your friends. See if you can get a group of you to do the Play and Pray Challenge. You can go to our website, get more info about that. We have Play and Pray Challenge booklets and stickers to give to you. And it is a free program that we are just promoting. Date night, family day, Sacred Heart of Jesus. Let's dedicate June to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Because he is the king. Before, he is the king of
we should
world.
Be renewing it every year. And it's a great excuse to start the summer off right.
Yep.
With your marriage, with your family, and with Jesus.
That's right.
There you go. All right. So let's jump into
the
deep topic of technology, screens, and your kids and everything else.
And we have a bunch of research that I've done. There's just so much, there's more and more research that comes out all the time about screens and technology. And at the end of our podcast, I think I'm a podcaster, I don't know how to talk.
It's okay.
In our podcast notes, there are links to some really great articles.
Yeah. And
research.
And it's important, we'll mention this more than once, but it's important to be informed, to be kind of smart as we approach this and not to be caught flat-footed. We're going to start off with some bigger perspective on kids and safety, but we're going to get into some big principles because technology will continue to change and evolve. And we as parents need to have the right principles and talk about this as a couple, because the unity that you have as a couple is going to determine how effective your plan in approaching screens
when you
and
talk
technology.
About technology evolving, let's think about the very first, I was looking at this. I had this idea of opening the podcast like this. Think about the first tech that came out during the Industrial Revolution and what the kind of technology that kids were exposed to then. You know what they were doing? They were working in factories, right? They're working in factories when they were 12 years old, 11 years old, 10 years old. They were using all of these big machines, which we now as a modern people look back and we say,
I can't believe people did that.
I cannot believe people allowed their kids to do that. And then you look at the technology of even like playground equipment, and where that has come.
Yes.
And then I was looking at a really fun thing. Go look up the first car seats. The first car seats. Talk about technology that
I don't remember ever wearing a seatbelt when I was growing up, and somehow we survived. And again, I'm not saying that we buckle in, we put our kids in car seats and all of that, right?
But there was like literally one of the things was this like strap that it was almost looked like a dog leash that you put around your child's waist, and you connected it to the seatbelt in the car, and that was supposed to help your child. That was supposed to keep your child in their seat. So we look back, that technology for kids, basically.
Yeah, the safety issue for kids, right?
We look back on that and we're like, those parents are crazy. What were they thinking?
Yeah.
I really think 50 years from now, 25 years from now, people will look back at this generation and say, of parents, and say, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah.
I can't believe you did that. And I'm serious, guys. That's literally how serious this is. And we're not saying all technology is bad. Of course, we're not saying that. But the way that people are using and exposing their kids to technology, the way people in the past exposed their children to harmful chemicals,
right?
That they didn't realize the effects until their kids started, getting sick and dying. And that's what's happening now. There's more and more research coming out about this.
Yeah, and we're only beginning to see the impact that it has. And again, as Alicia said earlier, This is not purely about pornography, although that's obviously a great danger and a great moral and psychological damage.
That's become to be just like one really harmful part of it.
So, and again, and we don't want to paint we want to have an informed picture. We're not printing or portraying a completely one-sided view. We want to present a full view so that you get to see how this impacts the human person. And that's the massive shift in that these studies, I mean, we haven't had that long where screens, technologies, the stuff we have today has longitudinal studies. We don't have a lot of those. They're beginning to come more and more now.
Well, I was looking at several like charts and things, and that Facebook or the iPhone came out in 2004. Facebook came out in 2007. And you look at all of these trends in mental health, in self-harm, in addiction, in all of these things. And you can literally just like pinpoint.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like just a few years, really around 2010, 2011, all of these numbers that are bad for kids started going up. But like Mike was just saying, technology is not the problem.
That's right.
We are very much a techie family. But if this is why we're doing this podcast, is that if we allow it to control us, if we abdicate control or if we let our guard down, and that's why we started this by saying we are literally dealing with this like today, today at this moment, we as a messy family have to sit down and have some hard conversations with some of our kids about things, because it's not even just you get the right perspective, you do this. You have to constantly be on your guard.
That's right.
You really, really do. You have to constantly be on top of your kids.
We have to be vigilant.
You have to be vigilant.
And if the analogy,
I hate to tell you guys that, but it's like there's no other way.
And I feel like we've used this analogy in other places, but I really believe this is true. That when you look at your kids and they're entering into the world of technology, and again, compare it to driving. Because
it's a great analogy. I really think it's effective.
When you look at how we don't put a 5-year-old behind the wheel of a car
or a 12-year-old
that there is the state and parents wisely should say there is an age where they need to learn how to drive a car, but we don't just throw them the keys and say have fun.
But let me ask you something. Why is it 16? It's 16 not because they're physically bigger. It's because of their mental capacity.
Their mental and moral capacity, right?
Yes.
The hope is that they have a baseline of both physical skills as well as discernment, as well as just a moral framework. Because
we're driving. We're just talking about driving right now.
because driving a car is both dangerous to them as well as to those on the road. You need to have somebody who has that framework, that discerning both physical skills and moral skills, if you will, to navigate out there. And again, when we do it, the state tells us, hey, you know what? This is a prudent thing for all of us to have. But this technology, this automobile, is something that we want them first to be trained by their parents and or school, right? And after they do that, they have a probationary period where they get a permit. And then after their permit and they've successfully passed tests and they've seen and been given a driving test, they're like, okay, now you're able to go out, and you then have, I guess, maybe a probationary license then.
Yes. Yeah. Until they're 18.
Who can be in the car? Where can you drive?
How
what time?
late?
You know, and then you're allowed the freedom of an adult.
And that is all mental, according to a human being's mental and moral capacity. Like the state has said, hey, it's around 16. And you know what? And I have found in our parenting, that's a pretty good age. I really do think that's a good age, because there is definitely something that happens probably around like 14 or 15 for girls and definitely 16 or 17 for boys. There's a definite maturity there's a big difference between a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Much more than even an 18-year-old to a 22-year-old, to be honest with you.
And we won't go into great detail in this, but the whole objective of our parenting, again, is that we're moving from just merely protecting their innocence, which is vital, and we'll probably get into that. I'm getting a little ahead of us, but the idea that
no, it's okay.
But we are protecting their innocence, and in a way, we always want that, but we want to focus on when they come to the preteen and teen years, especially in the 16, that we're building Christian maturity, meaning we're not simply just saying, oh, you have complete liberty to do whatever you want, but we're also giving them freedom so that they can make choices.
Locus of control.
Yeah, it's moving the locus of control from us maybe being external and controlling an environment, where it's shifting that, it's giving that torch and giving them more power, more freedom, but training and forming them in virtue. Because if you get to a point where you're ready to pass the keys to your 16-year-old or, have a device or whatever, we'll get more into the technology part, right? But if you haven't built up to that point, if you haven't made a slow progression of, earning some trust, stretching their abilities, giving them new opportunities, and you get to that point and you're caught like, I don't know if they're ready, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
Because when they're 16, 2 more years, they're likely out of your house.
Yeah.
And so when we look at our parenting trajectory, we need to not get so stressed out about the day-to-day, like, oh my gosh, if I miss this one moment, but we can't also lose perspective that we only have 18 years of wise investment. And those 18 years go by fast. And people always told us that. And they were like, your kids are cute and you got to and we never believed them. And you'll probably not believe us. But the reality is time does pass quickly, and it gets quicker and quicker. And if you have more kids, your time
really goes fast.
Your time shrinks, your ability to invest in all the things that are going on in your life. And so anyway, but the point being that we need to see this perspective. Perfect analogy is training someone to drive a vehicle, that they have slowly build up other building blocks that get them to this place.
Yep.
Like for me, like
you got to move it over.
Like again, I don't want to go, we're taking too much time on this in some ways, but like I have my kids mowing the lawn. My boys mowing the lawn, and have different things where they're maybe driving the lawn tractor when they get to early teen years. There's some physical things that they learn in that. That's great. But it's more about building the moral capacity to make wise decisions and get ready for technology as well as cars.
So talking about that internal, external locus of control, which really is the basis for part of this conversation 100%. We're having now, we have seen, I'm telling you right now, if you do not train your child to have that internal locus of control in regards to technology, it is not going to serve them for the rest of their life.
That's
we
right.
literally we had always said this, but we had the perfect example in a couple that we were doing a talk, and this couple came up to us afterwards, and they were like, our 18-year-old is in college right now.
That's right.
He was homeschooled his home life, sheltered. We kept him away from all technology. He is 18 and he is at college, and he is failing out of college because he is now addicted to video games. They used their time with their child instead of creating that, okay, we're going to slowly teach you how to drive, right?
Right.
We're going to slowly shift that locus of control to you. Instead, they just said, you know what, we're not even going to do anything. Our plan is just to keep him. There are no cars. You don't look at a car. You don't see a car. Nothing. So then he was just thrown in the deep end, and he had no tools.
Right.
To
he didn't
learn
have any muscles,
He didn't have any muscles in that area. And we're going to talk about how to know about addiction. And that can be as an actual term used by researchers for particular video games, but even social media and things like that. So again, just to emphasize, we are not anti-technology. We are saying that
we are pro-wise parents, right?
We are pro-wise parents. And there's three things. Okay, so 3 principles to building Christian maturity. All right, this is what we're going to go through, hopefully, in just this one podcast. I don't know. We're already 20 minutes in. I feel like this might be 2 podcasts. Anyway, so number 1, we have to learn how to control ourselves, right? And we have to be wise and we have to be aware. Number 2, you do need to have external controls over your children.
At least their
when
environment,
they are
right?
young. So external is you, the environment they're in, how many devices you have in your house.
Right.
Filters,
we are the
blah,
ultimate
blah, blah.
authority in our home.
We are the ultimate authority in our home. But then third, we need to slowly give them freedom and transfer that locus of control to them.
Right.
Okay. And teach them how to be discerning. And also we're going to talk about what to do when those things fail, when they make mistakes, because I can tell you right now, and this is just training your child in technology is just like every other aspect of parenting. Your child is going to screw up. You know how I know that? Because we all screw up.
That's right. We've been there.
That's just the way
and we've seen it both with ourselves as well as with our kids.
Absolutely.
Right?
And we have great kids.
And one of the principles we often talk about is that it is not your job to turn your kids into saints. It's your kid's job to make you into a saint. And really, that's what a lot of our principles start with. But no joke, this begins with you beginning a real control of yourself
and control of your own tech use.
Right.
And awareness of our own tech use.
Because you can't give what you don't have, right? That doesn't mean you have to be perfect and that you've got it all, but the more that you can, the more effective you're going to be at passing it on with kids. So if you're in front of your kids at the dinner table, checking your texts and checking your phone, and then while you're having family time, you're scrolling. Dude, that's not the example we want.
Do not be surprised that your kids do that. I remember our daughters telling us once, they went over somebody's house for dinner and they said, and I was shocked because this was a pretty good family. They said that every single person at the table had their phone out, including mom and dad. And that was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, less 10 or 8 or 10 years ago. They told us that. And you know what? And I do know now that at least 2 or 3 of those adults had serious, and those kids, teenagers at the time, now adults. One has completely gone off the rails in gender ideology, and the other 2 had to deal with serious addictions to video games and to porn.
Right.
And it's like, because the parents were setting up, this is acceptable.
And
we cannot do that by our example.
There is something on the positive side that the little things sometimes that we do have a big impact. Right. And so you may not see it like, oh, well, 90% of my day, I'm not on my phone. Well, make sure that 10% isn't while you're always in front of your kids. That's right. If you're only using your phone or video, whatever it might be, make sure it's the majority of time that you are in the presence of your children.
Yeah.
You are interacting with them or people in real life. And these things need to be, it's kind of like, again, when you want to teach anything, you need to know it so much more yourself so as to be able to pass that on for them. Because and if you have ever in the past struggled with technology or are right now, that's not a bad thing to recognize it, but it's a far better thing to actually do something about it.
And I think that, so there's your own tech use in front of your kids, but I think it's also, when we talk about controlling yourself, is the way that you talk about technology to your kids.
Yeah.
I think that the way that we discuss videos that we see, stuff we see on Facebook, stuff we see on Instagram, all of those things, I think that there can be an unhealthy emphasis that we can be constantly putting on things that we're looking at on our phone. Even a regular conversation. Do you know what I mean? But we also kind of emphasize to our kids when we talk about them to be skeptical about what they hear online. Like my son, like we're having a conversation, would be like, oh yeah, did you hear, this crazy thing happened in this country? Yeah. And I'm like, well, how did you hear that? Have you ever, is that something that like the State Department is commenting on? Is that, kind of like being aware of, I hate to say the term, but being aware of like fake news, if you will.
Right.
But just having a healthy skepticism for everything that you read or see online. And also just having a healthy skepticism for just people who are online who are just, just spouting off things, influencers.
That's
Well,
right.
Who are they influencing and why are they saying these things?
Yeah.
They're not been vetted. They
Right.
haven't been. Who are they? Why does this person even have a platform?
Yeah.
We've actually even talked to other, Catholic leaders in ministry, and they see a real danger in even Catholic influencers sometimes pointing people in the wrong direction. And these people who are in ministry are like, they're leading people astray in these areas. So I'm not just talking about like crazy woke influencers. I'm talking about anything.
Right.
Like we all need to be kind of like wise as serpent and innocent as doves,
Right.
And especially and if we have that attitude, talk to your kids in a way that says that helps them to engage the logical part of their mind.
Because we want to develop young people. We want to take our kids from being naive and innocent. Again, there's a beauty to innocence, to discerning, mature, virtuous, Christian, mature adults, right?
Yes.
Because we want them to look at not just the posts that might be coming in or the stories or the fake news, but their entire use of technology, their entire engagement in the social media realm, and all of this stuff, and be able to say, is it true? Is it good? Is it beautiful? Is it, does it really add to my life? Does this actually resonate with the truth that I know? Because there are so many influences. And what we want to do is create a strength, a moral courage within our kids. And in order to get there, they need to have the some skills learned at an early age. And this goes back again to that car analogy. Your kids are not meant to do this alone. They're not to be thrown out in the deep end by themselves. The small little doses, age appropriate doses, with a good and wise and loving parent to guide them through this process. So again, you're beginning that shift of the external locus of control to an internal locus of control, because ultimately you want them to graduate from your school, your training program, your formation, which we call family life,
right?
Really wise and
but
discerning.
You want to be able to communicate to them your attitudes about technology and your attitudes, even about things like, like when we were kids, it was just recognizing a scam, right? And recognizing an email that's going to be spam, that's going to be a virus, I
remember that.
We all had to learn how to do that, right? We taught our older kids how to do that. Well, now there's like scams online all over the place. I actually there was a local buy, sell, and trade where there was a scammer on there. And you know what I actually did? I commented, I said, how about I come over to your house and throw a pile of cash on the front lawn? Will you refund it to me? And must have been a bot or something, because it said, private message me. I was like, oh my. So I contacted the administrator. I'm like, you need to kick this person off there. You need to block them. They're a robot or whatever. Yeah. But our kids don't know any of that. We need to teach them those things. We need to teach them how to be skeptical of everything.
A healthy skepticism, as you said, right? Yeah.
A very, very healthy skepticism. Now, why is this? Why do we have to be so aware as parents? Well, we need to be aware of the sensitive periods in the life of a child. Right. Okay. So this is kind of like a 200 level course here to our messy parents. All right.
But they're familiar with the basics here.
Yes. So I'm just going to tell you. So when I say sensitive periods, what I mean is that child development, the development of a human person, is not a straight line trajectory.
Linear.
It's not linear, right? It is, we have
Plateaus.
Periods of time when we develop very quickly in certain areas, right? So best example is language, right? A baby, it is amazing.
Yeah.
From the birth of a child in 2 years.
It's explosive
3
growth.
years, right? They become fluent, completely fluent in a language, right? So let's take out the first year of life, because they're just kind of like, they're just listening and they're like,
They're absorbing
growth
a lot.
and they're absorbing a lot, right? But from the time that they are 1 to the time they are 4, they are basically fluent in the English language. We never experience such a rapid time of growth in that area at any other time in our life. And they're not being taught it. They're
Right.
not, it's just around them, right?
Right.
So they have that sensitive period for language. They have a sensitive period for order when they are under the age of 6. They have a sensitive period for math when they are at a certain age. They have a sensitive period for social skills.
Yeah.
The sensitive period for social skills is really between the ages of like, I think it's probably 7, 8 up until 12.
Right.
And these are like social skills within a small group, family, classroom, all of that, right? And if they don't learn social skills at that time of their life, it is very, very hard.
Right. Well, it stunts their growth.
It stunts their growth.
Right.
And
or deforms it depending on how it's approached, and that's why we always talk about that time period as the golden years, because there is such a value in investing in our relationship with our child during that time, which then helps us prepare for the adolescent time. But it also is just a vital sense that not only within the family, but in the, some other communities without. So it's like, so when there is a, sorry, I don't want to cut you.
Well, no, I just wanted to tell you this one of these little studies that I found, and we'll link it below. They looked at Japanese children who came over to the United States and stayed for a couple years in the 70s, right? And it said that if they came between the ages of 9 and 15, if they were in school during that time, they could leave the United States, go back to Japan, and still, for the rest of their life, really feel like a Native American. I don't mean Native American, sorry, a American, right? But if they left before the age of 9, there was no lasting impact on their time in the United States.
Interesting.
No lasting impact.
I didn't know.
If they didn't arrive until they were 15, if they arrived after 15, it was too late.
And they were entrenched in their Japanese culture.
Exactly.
Which is,
if they arrived after 15, they really could never catch up and really feel fully American. So it was that time between 9 and 15 in this particular study that was so influential on their social skills, on their language, on how they spoke, on how they related to others, on all of the things, all of those unwritten and really almost hard to define social skills that happen between different cultures. Okay. Yeah. So now let's think about that in regards to technology, right? Let's
impose that on, the reality that this is what your kids are going through at this time. They're soaking up.
Right.
Again, we talk about this in other places, but identity, belonging, and mission are 3 things the family imparts on all of its members, right? And it confers this. And it happens at those different sensitive moments where I believe it becomes even more heightened, the need for a family to double down on the child's identity, who they are, and where they belong, so that they are always tethered back to the family and to truth and beauty and goodness. And so if in that time period, they're given external influences that in those sensitive periods, it will shape their identity and belonging in a very powerful and likely deformed way if the secular culture is doing it.
Right.
So that's why we as parents need to zero in on these particularly sensitive, not that you don't want to be always aware, right? You're always supposed to be aware, but particularly in those sensitive times, you need to be keenly aware of your responsibility to make sure that you're providing an environment and an experience and formation that is doubling down on their identity and their belonging. And technology can have some detrimental effects if you are not the vigilant parent who is wisely, prudently, giving out age appropriately the technology.
And I think that it's good. It's like even in this conversation to be looking at that 9 to 15-year-old age range,
right?
Because there is so much damage, to be quite frank, that can be done to kids at that time of life.
Right.
And so one of the articles I was reading, it talked about the importance of risk-taking, physical risk-taking.
Okay. For growth and
for
development.
Kids, right, at that, they have to take risks. children, especially between the ages, really all kids, but they have to take those risks and fail in order to learn. Because if that doesn't happen, what winds up happening is that then when they become teenagers and then move into adulthood, they won't know how to take appropriate risks. And that is a huge, huge problem.
And when you give your kids the opportunity to risk and fail in small things, then the consequences are usually small, right? But then if they don't learn that early on, the consequences keep going up, and you're putting your kids at greater danger and more consequences without the skills to get there. Because I want my kids, like we often talk about the physical challenges of life. They're like everything we do in some ways. We're an integrated human person. So everything we do is a bridge to other things. It doesn't mean that, if you're exceptional as a pianist, that you're going to be great at all these other things. But there's a skill when you become really, fluent in language, you become really fluent in
playing piano,
that skill is transferable to other areas, maybe not at the same competency because you may not have the same skills, but that discipline.
It's everything that is happening within your brain. You are challenging yourself. You are learning something new. You are getting self-confidence.
And what do you learn through all those? You learn self-confidence. You learn reliance. You learn on what is an appropriate level of risk that I can take, and where is my physical or mental or other abilities? How far can I go wisely without putting me past the point?
Okay, so why do I say this in regards to technology? Screens are experience blockers. I want every parent listening to write that on, put it up in your house.
Tell us what you mean.
Screens are experience blockers. Children from babies till whatever, till they're fully developed, need lots of physical experiences with their hands, with their eyes, with their ears. They need all of those sensorial experiences. When they are in front of a screen, every moment they're in front of a screen, that is blocking that experience that they need in order to develop. Yeah. So does that mean all screens are bad? No. What that means is that if you have in your mind, I'm going to allow my kid to be in front of the TV for an hour because I need to make dinner, go for it. I've done that like literally my entire life practically. But I am doing it with the knowledge I am choosing to block them from
other experiences,
playing outside, from building something, from playing piano, whatever. And sometimes as a mom, you're like, you know what? It's worth it. Okay. It's worth it because I need to do, but
it's okay. Pending
100%.
age and all of that. But I think it's huge because as we're talking about technology, there's nothing wrong with technology in and of itself. However, what does it do? When you're saying yes to one thing, that means you're saying no to something else.
Exactly.
Everybody has different skills. Everyone has different allowances of money and position, but everyone has the same amount of time. And so the question is, what are we doing with that time?
And like you said before, you only have so much time with your kids.
That's right.
So are you going to, how much time, if you add up how many years, so if a child is, this would be actually good to bring this up. Like if his child is on a screen, in front of a screen, whether it's a TV, whether it's a video game, whether it's a phone, tablet, blah, 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 whatever, 5 hours a day, add up how many years that is. Then those are years that you are taking away experiences from them that they need to learn to grow.
And when and I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but it made me think of the movie WALL-E. With all the,
I think of that movie all the time.
All the all the humans that are on the ship, that basically the robots, the computers, the AI do all the work for them, right? And so they're just sitting in their chairs,
big and fat,
and unable to actually do anything on their own.
Right.
And again, that's a extreme value or extreme,
of course, but that's why it's funny.
However, what does technology do for all of us?
Right.
Are we active? Like I've always been a fan of like when Wii came out, like the Wii Sports, and you have physical activity related to a video game. But even then I'm like, well, why don't we just go outside and play volleyball or play tennis or,
and full disclosure, we have a Nintendo Switch that we have in our living room that we've played games with like as a whole group.
And it was a great Christmas present for the family. And so we're not cutting it out, but the reality is that every time we do that,
right,
it is more passive to play a video game, period, then go out and play a game or even a board game on some level.
Yes. So let's just think about real quick. I just want to go through the experiences. Like, for example, like
ages,
babies and toddlers, for those little ones, movement is learning. The hand is the key to brain development. They need to crawl, walk, run, jump, tussle. They need to cry. They need to learn how to self-soothe, all of that. I have a great, I'll just move us through, but I have a great study talking about the more, and it's linked below, the more often parents would give screen to I forget the age range. I think it was like a 3 or 4 year old.
Yeah.
The more often, the less regulated that child was. So what you are doing when you give your child a screen when they're crying, what you are doing is that you are actually disabling them from future times of being able to emotionally regulate themselves. So you are choosing a short-term fix and letting go of a long-term gain. Right. And I had never seen a study like this. I thought it's absolutely fascinating. I wish I could find it right here. But anyway, so think about that. It's not even just the movement, but even their emotional regulation. And that decreases every time you give a baby, a toddler, a screen. Elementary kids, what are they learning at that time? They are learning how to be creative. How many elementary kids do handicrafts? They start doing sewing? They start doing, woodworking. They start doing, like, I've had kids make all kinds of messes with things. Claire would make all of these different science experiments and slime and all of that. Like, they need that connectivity to others, those social skills. Well, you know what? After 1 hour of screen time, all of those things, that creativity starts decreasing. They have less curiosity. They have less self-motivation. Guys, that is a sensitive period of time for those elementary age kids.
Yeah. And when you move into the teen years, now, like, again, developmentally, they're now externally focused. They're thinking about themselves in relationship to others.
To the world.
Right? So it's now on a whole new level. And it's also, this is the time where you want your kids to begin looking at how they can serve, how they can give, how their lives are meant for others. And again, this is done through sports and all these other activities that go on during this time, and the history and the things they're learning. Well, throw in technology on this. What does it do? Again, it's an experience block. So they might text and chat and connect with even real world friends, but then that means that's impeding them from face-to-face, person-to-person relationship. We have found our kids and others time and time again doing things, saying things they would never say to someone in front of them that they do online.
Guys, we could give you so many examples.
And we've been there, and our kids have been there. And then it's also like we talked to a member, good friends of ours that actually create dances and teach dancing to kids with the intent of getting them off their device and getting the courage to ask a girl to dance, and a girl saying yes or no, or and physically doing things together, dancing together, having fun together. We have lost that art in our world, and there is a real risk. And you're not just doing it so you can have a picture on Instagram or video for TikTok or whatever. You're doing this because there is a goodness in the other person. And when we have those technologies that become barriers for our teens' development.
And I'm even thinking about the teenager's worldview. Like we were just saying before.
Absolutely.
Like if you
their view of the world, because this is where they are forming in that time frame. They're forming their view of the world.
Exactly.
So who is influencing them? Who's teaching them how to look at the world?
Exactly. And you know what? I was just reading too. There's this a really great point about the fact that, especially on social media, anything, especially on like Instagram as they're strolling, or TikTok, anytime your child or anyone hovers over a certain video or picture or post that they are interested in, the algorithm will automatically start showing more things that have to do with that.
Yeah.
And
I found that I'm finding more things coming up on Ireland and rebuilding cottages coming up on my feed.
And so we have to realize this is happening to us, and it's happening to our kids, that as your teenagers are creating a worldview, anything that they are remotely interested in, they are going to be pigeonholed. They are going to be shown more and more things to make them more radicalized in whatever, not even just politically, but in any area.
Right. Because it wants to feed. And if that moment of curiosity, they lingered because it was appealing. It was the lure of the eyes. It was the glamour of something. And they were just, well, now the next time, then they're feeding that it's not the endorphin. I don't know if there's a dopamine hit or anything, depends on what is actually being engaged with, but they know how to emotionally manipulate children because they have spent millions and millions of dollars creating algorithms, creating software so as to make their devices addictive, right? Exactly. It's plain up, straight and simple. And some of the greatest tech leaders don't allow their own children to get on the actual platforms and apps that they themselves have created.
Right. No 12-year-old, no 17-year-old has the capacity to outwit the algorithm. They just don't.
Right.
And we need to be humble and realize that we can't say, we have controls. We know who their friends are. You don't understand. It is an algorithm that is their financial success is tied to addicting your child. And the sooner they addict your child, the more money they're going to be getting off of them their entire lives. So we need to wake up and realize that social media, AI, or social media and, I'll just say social media for now. And actually video games. We'll get into video games next time, but they are created to be addictive.
Yeah.
And your child does not have the capacity to be so close to that without being addictive. So that's why we would say, and more studies are coming out, no social media until kids are over the age of 16 at all. And I've already told our daughters that because it is too distorting of the world and who they are and what their interaction with the world.
And so we do have, as you started off the show, we have a lot more to get to about what do we do, external controls that we need to put in place, how we are forming our kids.
External controls and boundaries. And then we're going to talk about giving what happens. How do we transfer that control to our child?
How do we shift that freedom and formation to your child and to really raise up kids who are both tech savvy, virtuous, mature Christian adults? That's the goal here, right? All right. So that'll be what we'll catch up on next time. Yeah. And so we'll pause it here and we'll say a prayer. And next week we'll continue this conversation. And anyway, we'd love more questions and comments on this feedback.
Oh, please. That would be amazing.
This is something we really want us to, as parents, all of us together saying, how can we be more effective in dealing with technology in our home and form our children wisely? So let's pray. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. Oh, Father of all goodness, Father of our families, help us as parents navigate and journey through this challenging adventure of technology in the home and with our kids. Help us see our kids for who you have made them to be and what you've made them for, and allow us, Lord, to be bold and courageous and loving in our ways that we form and guide our children. In your name we pray. Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. And again, if you want more information, visit us at messyfamilyproject.org on whether it be the getaways, the play and pray, any of the other stuff that we've got going on.
Or our guide to technology.
Or our guide to technology, which is pretty powerful and a beautiful guide for that. But until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.